This is BBC Radio 5 Live.
Good morning, it's your call. Right, this morning Andrew Mitchell has again insisted he didn't use the word pleb during an argument with police officers outside Downing Street. In today's newspapers, the officer involved has repeated the claim that he did. Two officers apparently say that he did. Who do you believe? Andrew Mitchell or the police? Both have a track record, politicians and of course police have a track record of being less than truthful. Who do you trust? Can we take the police at their word? Has Andrew Mitchell shown his true colours? Is he just trying to save his skin? It's his word versus the others. And does it all matter? Or is it a storm in a teacup? 0500 909 693. Call us now. Text 85058. You're with 5 Live from the BBC. Well, the Sun calls him the sweary biker, Andrew Mitchell. One can't help but feel this question, well, what did you say is going to dog him right like a rather selfish driver on his inside lane for quite some time yet? Who do you believe? Andrew Mitchell or the police? The Tory chief whip insists he did not use the word pleb during an argument. Are we getting too hung up on this particular word? And what of the police's motives here? Some reckon they have a vested interest in attacking the government and they've grabbed this one like a dog with a bone. Or is Andrew Mitchell just trying to cover his own back? We've heard from Labour this morning. They're jumping on this particular wagon as well. Who do you believe, Andrew Mitchell or the police? Maybe you think it's all a storm in a teacup. This is your forum to say what you do think. 0500 909 693. You can text 85058. We're going to speak to John Tulley, who's chair of the Metropolitan Police Federation. Mr. Tulley, good morning.
Good morning, Nicky.
And we've got Richard in Grant-on-Spey and Martin in Birmingham and David in West Sussex. David, what do you think?
Good morning, Nicky. Well, ever since this story sort of blew up, I do think that, well, first of all, I think it is a storm in a teacup. However, since it blew up, there's one aspect of the story which nobody in the media seems to have been asking. What was the behaviour or the attitude of the police to a senior member of the government trying to enter Downing Street on legitimate business that possibly sparked all this off? Were they being a bit officious? Were they being a bit jobs-worthy? Should they have shown him a bit more respect as a senior member of the government? And nobody seems to have been asking those questions. I actually believe that Andrew Mitchell has not shown himself in good light. I think he probably is now trying to cover his tracks. But at the same time, I'm not totally sympathetic to the police either. I think their behaviour probably sparked this whole thing off.
Interesting. Martin, what do you think?
Well, it's complete nonsense. I mean, you only have to read what the Sunday Times have quoted verbatim, which they wouldn't have done unless they were sure of their words. Oh, yeah. He says, I'm the chief whip. Best to learn your effing place. You don't run this effing government, you effing plebs. Now, that kind of language in the third millennium is completely unacceptable. If he'd have used that language in the context of race or gender, he'd be out of his job already. So why is it in this context that he's allowed to discriminate against people on the grounds of their perceived socio-economic class and get away with it?
John Tulley, chair of the Metropolitan Police Federation. Answer that one, John. Over-officious?
Yes, thank you. I think they were over-officious. There are protocols around security provisions at Downing Street. They were carrying out their role in respect of the security of the street. And, as far as I'm concerned, they acted very respectfully to Mr. Mitchell. They didn't provoke him. It was an unprovoked tirade. I believe their account. I think the Prime Minister should launch an immediate inquiry into...
you believe their account? You believe that they did, in fact, say, according to the two police officers, best you learn your bleeping place. Can we say bleeping for the purposes of this, everyone?
Sorry.
It's all right. It's all right. It's all right. I want an official inquiry into your language, Martin. You don't run this bleeping government. You're bleeping plebs. Is it the pleb word, the P word, or is it the F word that bothers you, John Tulley?
I think there's a great deal of debate around the words. What was said and his behaviour, I believe, led the officers on duty to think that there may be an offence under Section 5 of the Public Order Act. He was warned about his behaviour and he calmed down. Therefore, he wasn't arrested. But, if that had been anywhere else and if it had been you or I, then it might have been a different outcome.
Isn't that interesting? David Mellor, if it had been you or I, it might have been a different outcome. David Mellor.
I don't think it should be. And indeed, I I took the Public Order Act through Parliament, and I disliked the way the police abused the powers they were given under the Public Order Act, which was to deal with yobbery in town centres, group yobbery. The idea that an argument, even one that got out of hand, between a cabinet minister and people whose job is to open gates to let ministers in and out of number 10, that was an abuse of power by the police to suggest the use of the Public Order Act. You know, if I could undo one thing I did in government, I wouldn't have taken the wretched thing through because it's abused. There was no threat to public order whatsoever.
Listen to Boris Johnson. Wait, one second. Listen to in a minute. Wait. In a minute, please. I do beg your pardon. It's opposite to play what Boris Johnson said at a Tory conference 2 years ago now. Here we go.
If people swear at the police, then they must expect to be arrested. If people feel that there are no comebacks and no boundaries and no retribution for the small stuff, then I'm afraid they will go on to commit worse crimes.
Now you can respond. It was Martin, wasn't it?
Sorry, yeah, David, you forget what you drafted, because the Section 5 refers to not merely threatening behaviour, but insulting behaviour.
Yes, but it was all
if anyone called me, if anyone called me a bleeping pleb, I would treat that as an insult, and therefore it does fall within Section 5.
But Nicky, on the limited amount of time I've got with you, could I just make a couple of other points, just to sort of stir the pot a bit further? Andrew Mitchell should not have said what he said. Even what he said was inappropriate. But let's be quite clear.
Well, we don't know what he said. He hasn't said what he said.
Well, he said he swore at them, and he shouldn't have done. But what he should have done, you know, he's a cabinet minister trying to get out of number 10 or number 9, where the chief whip hangs out. If he'd been in a car, there'd have been no question they'd have had to open the gate for him. He assumed that they should open the gate for him on a bike. It would have actually been much more sensible if he'd just gone through the pedestrian way, having dismounted first. However, let's be quite clear about this. It is not for the police on duty at number 10 at the road there, and I was a minister for 11 years, their job was to let people in and out who had official business in number 10. So Mitchell was not wrong to take the view that if he wanted the gates open to cycle through, he was entitled to that. What was wrong was then the row that ensued and the manner in which that row ensued. But what was equally clear, though, is that he has apologised, he has grovelled, he's been humiliated, his authority has suffered perhaps permanent damage. We should let it go. But the police, particularly Mr. Tulley there, won't let it go because they want his head on a pole, because they're of the view that, you know, as politicians look ever more rigorously at the problems of the police, the Spanish practices and all that are trying to deal with, it would be no bad thing from their point of view if they had a senior politician who they had effectively destroyed his career, and that would be a warning to others.
I want to ask you one more thing.
Not doing their duty.
I want to ask you one more thing before you do go. But John Tulley, just respond to that.
Well, I mean, I listened to the comments made by your guest earlier over the weekend, where he made an allegation which was absolutely outrageous, that the police officers sold their story to the Sun. I think if he's going to make such allegations, he needs to show us his proof.
No. Actually, on the contrary, this is very interesting, this thing about the Sun. In fact, Nicky, well worth your while getting involved in, because we apparently, I haven't read the Sun this morning, there's a verbatim account, a transcript of exactly what was said from police documents.
I asked the Shadow Policing Minister about this earlier on.
And how on earth did they get hold of that?
Well, you're just muddying the waters here, David, because I'm not a member of the Police Federation. I agree with Mr. Tulley that Andrew Mitchell's behaviour was unprovoked, totally unacceptable, and to be the kind of snob in relation to ordinary working-class police officers, which is what he perceived them to be in the third millennium, is totally unacceptable, Andrew, and he should resign.
Douglas is in Glasgow. Douglas, what do you think?
I just think it's incredible that this is getting so much airtime when, you know, the police have been shown to lie, and the Sun has been shown to be their trumpet for these lies on a much more horrendous scale than this. And why the police have chosen this method to make this whole thing public through the same Sun is unbelievable to me. I don't think we'll ever know the truth on this particular one, but you can be absolutely sure that the vast majority of people are going to be hugely sceptical about a story which appears in the Sun before it's even written up by the officers. officers. The officer accepts the apology, and still the whole thing goes on. You've got to think there's another agenda in there, just as there was another agenda at Hillsborough for the Sun and for the police.
Mike Pannett, author and former Met police officer, react to that.
Well, first of all, morning to you, Nicky.
Morning.
A quick one. I think, I love it when the spin doctors and then obviously when senior politicians get on, and I'm sure everybody within government would love to draw a thin blue line under this one. But I think that the difference here is the fact that it's now the officer's integrity, and I can tell you frontline police officers up and down the country have been in touch with me, and I think it's not the fact of somebody who's sworn at the police, because as we all know, people do on a Friday and Saturday night regularly swear at the police. But it absolutely is the case that the Commissioner of the Metropolitan Police, for example, said quite clearly in September in the Daily Telegraph that anybody who swears and uses foul language at the police should be liable to be arrested. Now, the police have used a great deal of discretion here, I think, on this case. They haven't arrested him. He's been warned he could face arrest. But the mere fact of this, swearing is one thing, but being insultive as well, and not to come out. If he'd have come out straight away and said, "Look,
do you support the leak? Okay, do you support the leak to the Sun?"
I think it's sometimes I don't agree with leaks anyway. But however this has come out, I think that's another matter. I think the fact is what the public want. What the public
you want the guy to answer a straightforward question. Why don't you answer a straightforward question?
I think what the public want to see here, Nicky, is honesty and integrity. And of course, this is all in the public interest now. And I think it's all the members of the public want to know is what was exactly said. Now.